There has been a lot of news about DC on film as of late. Usually, a lot of news means a lot of excited fans. But these news kind of give the impression that there may be too many cooks in the proverbial Warner and DC kitchen, because the news range from Martin Scorcese producing a Joker origin movie which won't be part of the DC Extended Universe, while Jared Leto is set to reprise his Joker in a Harley Quinn movie which will be part of the DC Extended Universe, yet Matt Reeves claimed his new Batman trilogy wasn't connected right up until he backpedaled, all while rumors that Affleck is indeed done playing Batman after Justice League still persists. Let's just say that if Warner are hoping to change the public perception that they are running around like headless chickens, they aren't doing a very good job at it. But to get a clearer picture of what is going on, and to create some order out of the chaos, we'll do what we always do here at Midnight's Edge, namely, put all of these wildly different news items and rumors that accompany them into their proper context, so we can see what the bigger picture reveals. In this editorial then, I will be looking into what is going on with the triangle of Justice League, Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon, the unprecedented success of Wonder Woman, Ben Affleck's future as Batman, Matt Reeves' standalone Batman trilogy and the standalone Joker movie, and what this all could mean for the DC Extended Universe going forward. In earlier videos here at Midnight's Edge, we have covered how Batman v Superman was a reaction to Man of Steel falling way short of Warner's billion-dollar expectations. Zack Snyder, his wife Barbara, producer Charles Roven, and writer David Goyer took note of what they thought the audience didn't respond to in Man of Steel, and molded Batman v Superman and the entire DC Extended Universe going forward based on what they thought audiences would respond to. Unfortunately, their conclusions left something to be desired. For while many actually did enjoy Man of Steel, audiences positively recoiled from Batman v Superman, especially the botched theatrical cut the mass audience was subjected to. Even more unfortunate, every movie in development was cast in the same mold, which famously caused a lot of problems for Suicide Squad later on. But worst of all, Justice League was set to begin filming just a couple of weeks after the release of Batman v Superman, and audiences not responding to Batman v Superman did not bode well for Justice League, its most direct sequel. Justice League clearly needed a rethink, but delaying a Justice League scale production that late in the game was not deemed financially feasible, meaning the movie had to be retooled on the fly while they were making it. Early on in the Justice League shoot, Ben Affleck was upgraded to executive producer, meaning Zack Snyder got de facto demoted. Later, but still while Justice League was in the process of shooting, John Berg and Jeff Johns were appointed heads of DC Entertainment. For all intents and purposes, that meant that Zack Snyder had been demoted even further, as his original plan for the DC Extended Universe had effectively been discarded. The new heads of DC would make a new plan and change the still in production Justice League to that end. Changes which included putting a bit of hope and humor into proceedings and making Justice League just one movie, not the two-parter Snyder had envisioned. Before we move on, let's consider the human element for a moment. The same players who made Batman v Superman, a movie they had committed months, years, and in some cases probably their hearts and souls into, saw it ending in a public relations disaster. Instead of high fives and bonuses all around, which was no doubt the response they were expecting, what they got was audiences and critics hating on the movie, and Warner CEO Kevin Tsujihara openly saying it had devalued the DC brand. And then they were told that Justice League, a movie they had already planned, had to be retooled while it was being made, although no one knew for certain just how. That would have been devastating for morale, and practically assured a deeply troubled and distressing production for all involved, but more for some than for others. For Ben Affleck, playing Batman would have been a constant backdrop to his marriage and personal life falling apart, to his passion project bombing, and to the pressure of getting the Batman solo movie up and running, which got to him ever more. In the end, he dropped out of directing Batman, and as for him starring, well, you can kind of see how he might have soured on the whole playing Batman experience, which we'll get back to later. As we've seen, Zack Snyder's influence and control of DC on film has gotten ever diminished, which professionally must have been very difficult for him. And it was a long shoot, taking up most of 2016, because according to rumors, the initial shoot was very quickly followed by fairly extensive reshoots, as Snyder's very first cut of the movie evidently did not live up to expectations. It would appear that eventually someone else was brought in to help Zack Snyder with the movie. On March 30th, Joss Whedon was announced as the director of Batgirl, but we later learned that he by then had already been involved behind the scenes for some time, working on Justice League. On May 22nd, Zack Snyder stepped down from directing Justice League due to his daughter Autumn Snyder tragically having committed suicide, leaving Joss Whedon to finish the movie. The press release stated, Snyder, after screening a rough cut of Justice League for fellow filmmakers and friends, wanted to add additional scenes, so he brought Whedon on board to write them. This, of course, was the right thing to put in a press release, but it might not have been entirely accurate. The studio just might have had more to do with that decision than they let on in the press release. That another filmmaker is brought in to, quote, assist the official director in delivering the kind of movie the studio wants, does from time to time happen. Sometimes word slips out, like when Tony Gilroy wrote and directed new scenes in Garth Edwards' Rogue One. Other times you'll hear little or nothing about it, like when someone else allegedly stepped in for director Matthew Vaughn on the 5 weeks of reshoots X-Men First Class underwent. My guess is that if it had not been for the tragic death of Zack Snyder's daughter, this would have been another Tony Gilroy situation. Meaning Joss Whedon would have written new scenes anyway at the studio's request, directed some of them himself, while Snyder had stayed on and received the full director credit in public. It is only because the family situation forced Snyder to step down that Whedon formally took over as director. About the scenes to be directed by Joss Whedon, Warner's Tony Emmerich said, the directing is minimal and it has to adhere to the style and the tone and the template that Zack set. We're not going to introduce any new characters. It is the same characters in some new scenes. He's handing the baton to Joss, but the course has really been set by Zack. And for the most part, this is probably true. Apart from that bit about directing, which is code for reshoots being minimal. On May 15, 1 week before it was announced that Joss Whedon would be taking over Justice League, Splash Report broke the scoop that extensive reshoots were planned for Justice League in the upcoming months. Not only that, they also reported that one round of reshoots had already happened, and that this first round of reshoots also was extensive enough that the movie already had de facto been remade once. That would have been the first round of reshoots I was referring to earlier, prior to Joss Whedon being brought on. The next round of reshoots would represent the second time Justice League would be remade. This claim from Splash Report was picked up and spread like wildfire, and naturally it was denied and subsequently ridiculed all around. Time and other sources would validate it though. On July 24th, Variety reported that the Joss Whedon-held reshoots were extensive, costing about $25 million, and scheduled to last for 2 months. There have been occasional reports claiming that the reshoots aren't really that extensive, Snyder's vision remains intact, and that the reason they take so long is because not all the key actors needed are available at the same time, making matters more complicated. There is some truth to that. These are in-demand actors that can't drop their current commitments to return for reshoots that weren't scheduled years in advance. But Justice League was 2 movies, now cut down to 1. And you know how overlong even standalone Snyder movies tend to be. So there would no doubt be a lot of story-driving scenes that would have to be redone in order to make the initial two-parter a streamlined standalone movie that doesn't feel like it's missing large chunks. And other rumors would have it the reshoots have gone on for even longer, cost even more, and changed the movie even more than previously let on. Why would such drastic changes be necessary? Why would the studio bring in Joss Whedon in the first place, instead of letting Snyder finish the movie he wanted? Well, according to Bill Raimi of Batman on Film fame, because Zack Snyder's cut of the movie prior to Whedon being brought in was, quote, unwatchable. Of course, the naysayers were quick to point out that this claim was unconfirmed and really boils down to someone who heard it from someone else. That may technically be the case, but do bear in mind that when it comes to covering the DC Extended Universe, Batman on Film haven't been wrong yet, quite the contrary. Recently, there has been a rumor that Snyder would return to finish up Justice League. And that may very well be the case. He was never fired from Justice League. Someone else was merely brought in to salvage the movie. It was simply made all the more visible by Snyder's family tragedy. Just like Gareth Edwards returned to direct the Darth Vader sequence amidst the Tony Gilroy-helmed Rogue One reshoots, Snyder could very well return to the Joss Whedon retrofitted Justice League. Make no mistake about it though, Joss Whedon's retooled Justice League will be a very different movie from the one, or rather the two-parter, Zack Snyder set out to make. Will it be good? Has Joss Whedon managed to turn it around? Let's hope so, because the DC Extended Universe really could use another win. So far, their only hit with fans, critics, and the box office all at once is Wonder Woman, which made up for that by being immensely successful in all of those regards, as it domestically outperformed both Marvel's Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. She will no doubt be rewarded with an even bigger presence in Justice League. But what happens after Justice League? No longer a two-parter but a standalone movie. What does the announcement of DC movies not connected to the DC Extended Universe mean for the DC Extended Universe? On August 22nd, Deadline Hollywood reported that Tony Phillips was set to direct a Martin Scorcese-produced Joker origin movie taking place in the 80s. I tend to believe that he'll be a producer in name only, but anyway. According to the article, this will be the first film under a new banner that has yet to be named, in which Warner can expand the canon of DC properties and create unique storylines with different actors playing the iconic characters. The article's author, Mike Fleming Jr., had been told that the intention is to make an origin story that isn't part of any other iteration. The very next day, on August 23rd, a month-old interview with newly appointed Batman trilogy director Matt Reeves made the headlines. In it, he said that his Batman was not going to be part of the DC Extended Universe. His exact words were, "Well, I have a vision for a way to do something with that character that feels like it resonates with me personally, and a perspective that can grow out into other things." When they approached me, what they said was, "Look, it's a standalone. It's not part of the extended universe." It's tempting to think that they might try to pull a Logan with that standalone Joker movie. But if something as freaking major as new Batman movies aren't part of the DC Extended Universe, then surely that signals the DC Extended Universe is toast. Not really, because on the very same day, The Hollywood Reporter revealed that Jared Leto would reprise his Joker alongside Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn in a movie featuring the two taking place inside the DC Extended Universe. The movie will be the follow-up to the Suicide Squad sequel, which currently does not have a director but is being fast-tracked. Humberto Gonzalez later clarified that this Joker Harley Quinn movie is the project formerly known as Gotham City Sirens in a new wrapping. So, some movies will be released inside the DC Extended Universe label, and some will feature a different cast and be released under another yet-to-be-named label, without being connected with each other. What gives? The day after Matt Reeves' comments exploded in fan circles, he clarified what he had actually meant on Twitter. He said that of course Batman would be part of the DC universe, and that in his earlier comment about Batman not being part of the DCEU, he actually meant Batman being about Batman, and not filled with cameos servicing other characters. Bill Raimi from Batman on Film added that both Aquaman and Wonder Woman 2 will be made this way also, servicing their own stories. And again, Raimi's track record is such that I see no reason to doubt that he has heard this from reliable sources. And these pieces of additional information puts all of these erratic news items in a whole new light. Let me stress that what I'm about to say is not something I know or have heard. It is purely my own speculation based on the available information at hand. I think what we are seeing here are glimpses of the new plan for DC on film, which would appear to be predominantly about mostly standalone movies that take place in the same basic universe and continuity, but that only have loose connections to each other. You know, like Wonder Woman. They're one movie you can, without reservation, call a hit. In other words, the rushed world building that so far hasn't really worked out for DC would take a backseat to individual stories. That would not only be a way to differentiate themselves from the interconnectivity of Marvel Studios, it would fit with Warner's profile as a filmmaker-friendly studio that gives significant leeway to their directors, as a general thing. This way, you can have a Joker origin story set in the 80s, while Jared Leto reprises his Joker today in two tonally very different movies. And I tend to believe that down the line, we'll see how the OG 80s Joker passed the mantle to the Jared Leto Joker. That talk about it being completely separate? Yeah, I don't buy it. Seems more like a twist they want kept secret to me. Forget about Elseworld stories in the comics. They print dozens of comics every single month. A movie is a different beast entirely. I'm not buying Elseworld story there, not yet. And as for Batman? Well, that new approach of looser connections and a new label with different actors taking on iconic roles gives them an excuse to recast Ben Affleck. Either with someone else his age in stories taking place after Justice League, or much more likely, a younger actor playing a younger Batman in movies taking place prior to Man of Steel, back when Batman was the only known superhero. Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman were around, but their presence was unknown to the world at large, making it a world Batman can operate in alone. About that, I am inclined to believe Ben Affleck will drop out, unless Justice League ends up an unprecedented worldwide hit that makes it all worthwhile, and he is able to convince Matt Reeves to make his Batman trilogy about the older post-Justice League Batman, which I honestly doubt he'd agree to beyond bookends at most. Let me know what you think of all of this and how excited you are for the future of DC on film in the comments.
If you like this video, then please hit that subscribe button. Due to recent changes made by YouTube, we also encourage all of our subscribers, both new and old, to please hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button as well, so you will be notified when new videos are uploaded. Be sure to check back for news and analysis of the happenings and corporate politics behind the scenes of your favorite genre movies, as well as explorations of your favorite characters and their backgrounds and context here at Midnight's Edge.